honestly, it's starting to kind of lose its effectiveness. That's what ends up causing adrenal fatigue. A lot of times, what we want from our partner is them to just acknowledge our feelings and how big these feelings are. Because if any of their friends are watching, I will never hear the end of it. I will always be told, Mom, I can't believe you said that. Can you please leave me out of your podcast? Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Bless Your Heart podcast. I'm your host, Laura Hartnett, and on today's topic, we're going to be talking about positivity. Positivity, it's a word that has been thrown around a lot. I think, honestly, it's starting to kind of lose its effectiveness because people are always talking about, wake up with a gratitude mindset and having a gratitude mindset. But people really don't understand actually the physiological side of that and why it is so important to constantly be using this attitude of gratitude. And the reason why is because your part of, your brain that is living in a more gracious state, that is in part of your brain that has all the reward systems, so it starts bringing out all the dopamine and your endorphins, and it reduces cortisol. Actually, the reason why it reduces cortisol, because the part of your brain that is in the fear center, the amygdala, cannot work while the reward system is working. Like they both cannot coexist and be co-activated at the same time. And so the part of your, fear center that starts stimulating all of that cortisol that comes from your adrenals, that's what ends up causing adrenal fatigue. So your body actually, from producing all this cortisol that sends you into this state of panic and the state of fear, this lower reptilian brain, they say, your brain is made up of 3 parts. And whenever you start kind of get triggered and you start getting anxious, you actually stop using the higher part of your brain and you start using the lower part of your brain. That is what a lot of psychologists refer to as the reptilian brain, because it's the part of the brain that exists in reptiles and animals, and which that's just a survival instinct. And so that's why it's called the fight or flight. And so you start pumping out this cortisol, and the only way that you can really regulate your systems again after it gets stuck in this fight or flight is by, stopping the cortisol production. So how do you do that? You actually have to start taking super deep breaths. So I used to get in front of my kids even, and whenever they were little toddlers and they were screaming and just kind of having that toddler fit, I would just look at them and I would start validating them. I would just start saying, oh, this is so hard, isn't it? Things that they wanted to hear. Oh my goodness, this is such big feelings. So, you feel so frustrated. Are you so mad right now? And, they'd be like, yeah, I'm mad, I'm so mad, and I would just validate those feelings. And I said, okay, well, do this with me so that we could both feel better. Okay. And then I would look at them. I said, take deep breaths like this, and I take a big inhale and then I take a big exhale and then I say, do it with me, and sometimes, probably 8 out of 10, I'm not going to say 9 out of 10, because that's a little bit higher of a number. Sometimes they were just completely far gone. They are tapped into that reptilian brain, having an all-out tantrum. Fight or flight is switch has been turned on, and they're losing it. And but 8 out of 10 times, they would start responding to me. And what I really started realizing is how important it is during that time, whenever your nervous system is completely off and you are just in this fight or flight, how important it is to have support. And how important it is to not feel alone. Because I think that is the time where you feel completely on an island. You feel misunderstood. You feel upset because of all of these things, and you're the only one that seems to be losing it. And that feeling of feeling alone and loneliness, it's so big. And I think in children too, so me getting on their level, validating that feeling, and then, telling them, okay, breathe with me, and let's do this. And then once I saw them doing that, I said, oh, you're doing so good. Then I started giving them more of that reward. And what that did is that then stopped the cortisol, the deep breath started like bringing in oxygen, because once you start intentionally breathing, you're sending a signal to your body that you're safe. And so now that oxygen that's entering your body is telling your body, oh, we're safe. Stop the cortisol. And now you can start getting back to like regulation. And so that's what I would do with my children, and basically teaching them. I didn't even understand it at the time. You hear more now about nervous system regulation, but I didn't even know that that's what I was doing at the time. I had learned, from one of my childhood development specialists that I had been working with about this, and she had just explained it to me, and I was using it for me. And, empathetically, I was thinking like, what would I want whenever I'm upset? And, that's the thing that was so ironic about this whole experience, is what I realized from that is that that's what we want. All of us want. Just like a child, whenever, we are at our most primal state of fight or flight, it doesn't matter what age we are. We need to either have some time alone and have a timeout, because some of us regulate by ourselves, or if we have like a partner or somebody super close to us, we women, we like to do everything in pairs. So a lot of times, what we want from our partner is them to just acknowledge our feelings and how big these feelings are, and just say, honey, like this is really hard on you, isn't it? Like, it would be amazing for our husbands to come home after we've had a hard time and we're losing it, and we might even be lashing out at them, because we are in this fight or flight. We're in fight mode, right now. For them to just say, this sounds like you've really had an awful day, and just validate that. And it's amazing what that little bit can do. It's looking for that empathy and just trying to meet them in the dark where they are, instead of pulling someone out of the light and like, come on, do better, get better, like come back and be happy again. Sometimes it's just better to just go and sit with them in the dark for a minute and to just say, I'm here. And that's the way that I would parent. And that builds such a level of bond with you and your child and trust. And in order for me to do that, I'll be completely honest, I had to learn not only my own self-regulation, but most of the time, your children can trigger you, especially when they're upset, because, sometimes we forget we're exhausted or whatnot, and our kids are screaming, falling on the floor, over the fact that their milk is not filled all the way up to the brim of their sippy cup. And true story, actually happened with one of my kids. I won't say who, because if any of their friends are watching, I will never hear the end of it. I will always be told, Mom, I can't believe you said that. Can you please leave me out of your podcast? So in order to allow myself to still use them as examples, I won't say any names. But yeah, like I remember just being like, you're mad over this? Like, then what on earth, like, how are we going to make it? How are we going to make it in life? Like, we're not going to do well. Like, this is going to turn ugly. But, I think, in order to have that positive mindset, it really helps in just understanding, just first of all, and validating to you that in order to have a positive mindset, it doesn't mean that you have to be having a positive experience. There were many times in my life where I had to really dive in deep in order to see the positive things in life. I got so much out of this one book by Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning, because it was about his Holocaust survival story and how, there were times where he had to find just the tiniest bit of hope because, the Nazis had taken away everything. He was in the worst of the worst. I believe he was in Auschwitz. Correct me if I'm wrong, and so he was just going through just absolute terror. Death was completely all around him. In a place where how can you be positive? Like, what is there to think, how could you even be positive? The thing that I felt, and this was right before my divorce that I read this book, which I felt like was very divine given, set up because I didn't realize how much I was going to need just this framework for this next few years of my life that were coming up on me. And basically what he had said is, the only thing I can control is my perspective. And the Nazis had taken away everything from me. They can even take my life. But for me to give them my spirit and my spirit of hope, then I'm going to have to give that to them. That's the one thing they cannot take from me. They can take away my clothes. They can take away my food. They can take away everything else, but they cannot take away my spirit. That is something that's given to me, only I possess. And I can give it to them, or I can choose to find the most minuscule thing to be grateful for. He said that there was a time that he couldn't even breathe because it was so damp. And, talk about diseases and fleas and things that were happening in these concentration camps. And he said that there was just times where he would just see sunlight, like the tiniest glimmer of light. And he just was grateful for that. And he just sat there grateful for that. And, that is the thing that it really made me it was a really tough read because, I was just like, man, like it really puts it in perspective, your first world problems and things of that nature when you start, thinking about all these things, and right now as I'm filming this, there's like all these, and it's just absolutely terrible wildfires that are happening out in California right now. And it's just absolute utter devastation. The questions that come to everybody's mind of, where is God in all of this? And it's where people start to really dive in and start understanding like the meaning of life and purpose. And, what's sad is that sometimes it takes such tragedies for us to find gratitude, because it's whenever we are just broken down. I feel like there are 2 times in your life that you really end up understanding gratitude and looking for purpose. And that is when you have all the things in the world. Like I remember Jim Carrey, he had like the most amazing interview, and I got a lot out of it because, he's a very intelligent guy. I know he's gone through a lot of stuff, and, I'm not here to judge, but I feel like one thing that he said that was so true is he said, I wish everybody could be rich and famous just so they could see that that wasn't the answer to happiness and fulfillment. And I completely agree with that. Like I've seen and I've met many, people that are famous, and it's not what it's cracked up to be from what they tell me. And obviously I haven't experienced that, nor do I want to, but the things that they would say about it was just the loneliness and how they were being used. And, there's such a dark side of it, but really what makes a person happy is fulfillment and having understanding what your purpose is. And it's usually whenever you are extremely monetarily successful, and you have a ton of success in all these different ways, but yet you never found your purpose. Like if you're successful at your purpose and as a byproduct, then you're monetarily successful, then I think that, happiness definitely lies in all of that. But the main point is that you found your purpose, and it's not the money that makes you happy. It's not the monetary value that makes you happy. And I think that whenever I've seen many people who have reached these goals of monetary success or fame and things of this nature, and they still aren't happy, it's because they didn't realize that this actually isn't their, it's a fight with their spirit of this isn't actually why I'm here, is it? And they almost realize that, I did all these things, but what for? I see it with a lot of athletes like Greg Louganis. Did I say that right? Hopefully I said his name right. But he actually has a program for retired athletes because they go through this major identity crisis after they become very successful, like winning the Olympics or once they retire from competing at such a high place, because, they have been just discipline and living this life with such purpose. And that purpose was to achieve a certain goal. And once that goal was, was caught and they did it and they accomplished it, they didn't know what their purpose was. And so after that, they had to rediscover another purpose. And honestly, for many athletes, they discovered that, they finally got this thing that they thought they wanted. And then they realized, as amazing as it is, and I'm not trying to take away any glory from any of these athletes, because, the things that it takes for you to become successful at a sport like that, I was an extremely competitive figure skater and training for Salt Lake 2002. That was a dream I had, but I'll tell you the rest of that story another time. But, the mentality and the skills and character that you build in order to accomplish such a thing, that is, that journey is what creates you. And I think sometimes once you get to that goal, you don't feel like you're complete and you don't know what to do afterwards to continue growing. That's the thing that kind of, when I retired from skating, I went through a whole identity crisis, because I was like, what do I do now? I have all this passion. I have all this drive. Like I lacked purpose, and that lacking purpose really made me struggle. Whenever mothers, raise their children, when they first have children, they feel a lot of purpose and they feel this joy and fulfillment from watching their kids grow. But then once they become empty nesters, they realize, oh my goodness, like, what do I do next? It's almost a similar thing. You're constantly having to redefine your purpose, and what I have seen is that the people that really give to society and start looking to build others and contribute to others, those are the ones, to me, that seem to have the most joy, because that's the end goal. I always talk about in parenting, just to kind of go back, I always talk about in parenting, there are 3 stages in parenting. Stage 1 is whenever the kids are really young and they don't even know what they're doing. They're just trying to survive, right? Those are the early years. Stage 2 is you're starting to teach them how to take care of themselves. Like, hey, this is how you do your laundry. This is how you clean your room. This is how you time management with what you have to do. Like, okay, here are your chores, but you also have all these fun things you want to do. Here's your homework. How do I manage my time, get all my work done, but also go to cheer practice or football practice? And that's that phase of understanding that. And then right before, I think a lot of parents get confused and think that that's it. Like, okay, now I taught them how to do all this for themselves, I'm done. And I actually disagree with that. I think that you're not done with parenting until you teach your children how to contribute and help others. So it's not just how to take care of myself, it's also how to take care of others. And so during the adolescent time, like around, I would say like 12, 13, all the way up till 18, that is whenever you're starting to talk about like, okay, this is what the household needs. This is what we have to do in this whole house. And so that way, whenever your sons, for instance, let's say they live a more traditional life, their wife stays at home. Then, they already know like what it takes to run a household, and so they can come in, and if their wife's been at home, they can take over and help out with some of the duties, and they're not over here going like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? Because they've been taught, how to be a leader in a house. This is all what the household needs. And whenever I come home from work, your job's not done. You're not like, I went out and worked. My wife's been working all day taking care of kids. And now I'm just, I'm done. My work here is done. Nope. Actually, now you do your second job, which is taking care of the house. And both of y'all do that together. So, and what I mean by that is like taking care of the kids. You're a dad now, like all these things. But so going back to that, it's, I think that helps them understand their purpose. I think whenever they're very self-centered and you're teaching them it's all about taking care of them, I think that this is a boundary that I really started to understand a little bit more. It's very hard for me because I genuinely I absolutely love going to all of my kids' things. Like I love going to their football games. I love going to all their sporting, their dance competitions, their their cheer competitions. Like, I just love watching my kids excel, and I'm very fortunate. They're very talented. So I get a huge kick out of it, because it's not just to be there and watch them. They all do it very, very well. So that's just even more exciting. But I think that it's very easy for us to just kind of cater to their whole lives and just be their little assistants, But then sometimes it's like, no, now it's time for you to help the house and help me. And that's okay. Just because I'm the mom and I'm the leader, I'm not supposed to be, because sometimes they'll tell me like, yeah, but you're a mom. Like, that's what moms do. And I'm like, no, one of these days you're going to be in charge of your household. So you need to start learning how to run a household. And so I'm going to bring you in on this. I'm going to start teaching you how to do dinner. I'm going to start teaching you how to do things. And once they start feeling that sense of autonomy and like ability, like to take care of themselves and to take care of another person, they're going to start trusting who they are. They're going to find themselves to be valuable. And I feel like then they're going to go out into the community, and they're also going to feel like, I want to contribute to society. I want to, do more events and stuff, and like for charities and things of that nature as well. And that's where they're going to find that real fulfillment in life. And so going back on just, positivity and how can we, I kind of talked about the why, why it's important to have a positive mindset. And that is because, anxiety is just rampant now. And I don't think that it's a coincidence if you start looking back at when anxiety disorders started getting like, a lot of people were saying like the reason why they became more out in public and people started talking about them a lot more was because there was just more research that was out there now. And you know what? I think that could be true. However, I also don't think it's a coincidence that the more we became a little bit more selfish and the you do you movement and like, like it's all about me kind of thing. I got to take care of myself. I don't need a man. Like all of these types of things that went out there. I don't think it's a coincidence that anxiety started really going up and our critical nature also started going up. And where did our positivity start going? And now I think the world is starting to see that. And so we're starting to talk more about like gratitude, because everyone's starting to realize that that's the only way to combat this anxiety-ridden culture. And so, and naturally at least, because the last thing I want to do is, there were times in my life where, I'll be completely honest, there was a time, especially going through what I went through in my marriage, when I did have to go on a medication for a short time, and I was just so overwhelmed. I was, depressed at a time because it was a lot. I had just had my third baby in less than 3 years. Yeah, I think it was less than 3 years. And it was just like, my oldest was 2.5 when my third was born. And then I had a 16-month-old, and then I had a newborn. And I was just trying to be everything to everybody. Some of my friends were getting married, and I was maid of honor for a few of those. And it was just like one thing after another. Like, it was actually... It was a pretty funny story. Coming home from the hospital, I had a C-section, and coming home from the hospital, the other girl that was supposed to help me with one of the baby showers, she forgot to send out the invitations. And I was like, you had one job. And she forgot to send out the invitations for my friend's wedding shower. And I was like, okay, well, we have to get this done. And she's like, I know, I'll do it. And I'm like, no, like literally the shower's in like a few days. I think it was even less than a week. And I was like, and this is back whenever nobody was really emailing. So people were still like paper printing these things out, And so on the way home from the hospital, I was riding home. My mom was taking me home. And I was like, we have to stop by Target. And she was like, are you kidding me? Like, you literally just had surgery 2 days ago. A C-section, and I had my third child in a baby Bjorn, and I'm hunched over because of the C-section, walking in Target to grab invitations to print out so I could get them out that evening. And I mean, it was just like, I was trying to just be everything to everyone, and I was losing my mind, and I didn't have strong boundaries. I hadn't started, therapy at that point with all of that. And at this point, it was whenever I was like, okay, I'm having a nervous breakdown. This is not okay. And so I went on something for a couple of weeks. And the thing that I didn't like about it is, I think it was helpful. And if you need it, definitely that's a decision between you and your doctor. So there's no judgment there, but I do feel like, my opinion and the stance I take is you need to make sure that it's your last option, because if there's other things you can do to naturally regulate yourself, then I would definitely try to do that first, because, there are so many different kind of medications and stuff like that. And if, wrong doses and stuff like that, it can really get complicated and it can make some things worse. I know a lot of my clients that come in and are talking about it, it's not something to just take lightly and just think like a pill that you can take can solve all your problems. So I feel like just learning a lot about this and, getting a good psychologist, and talking to them about all of this and learning about it and how to do all of this more through behavior, cognitive behavioral therapy. Oh my gosh, I can't say that word. But in order to do that, I think that is going to be like so much, such a great place to start. But as far as, positivity goes, like I just had a really great conversation with friends of mine recently. And we were just talking about that. Like I read this really great book, The Power of a Positive Woman. And she also has one, The Power of a Positive Mom. I will put a picture and a link so that you can have access to that book, because it was so great and it was so helpful for me, because you don't even realize like what you're basically doing is by being a positive mom and being a positive woman, just whoever it is that you basically are around, you create an atmosphere that is a really mentally healthy atmosphere. And not a fake atmosphere, because I really had to learn the ins and outs of what does it mean to live a positive lifestyle. It's not just telling yourself and basically dissociating from your problems and just saying, no, life is really good, when you're deep down dying inside and just like, it's really, really hard and this is an awful season of my life. You can't just lie to yourself and fake it till you make it. You have to genuinely, and I do believe, just like Viktor Frankl and his story with Auschwitz, it's like you really do sometimes have to get down to the nitty-gritty and figure out what is positive in my life. Like, what could I really search for? There's got to be something right now. And if there's not, then create something for yourself. I remember, and I might have already told this story, so sorry if I have, I'm going to repeat it. But I just remember whenever we were broker than broke and we couldn't afford anything whenever I had all my kids, that I would go to Sonic and I would save up for the week, and I would just reward myself on a Friday during happy hour. I couldn't even afford to get a happy hour drink. Like, that's how broke we were. All I could afford was the 25 cents to fill up a cup with ice. And I had that really great Sonic ice. And I would just sit and I would munch on it. And I would feel positive about that. I would be like, I'm just really grateful for this, because it was almost by not allowing myself to have it every day, like, and just rewarding and saying, this is going to be my treat. And this is how I'm going to reward myself, and creating like these little rewards for myself. Like, there was this really cute outfit like recently that I really wanted, and it was from that, was it the Free People's like activewear? I don't even know. I can't see, this is like how aware of brands I am. But it was like a really cute outfit, and it was really expensive, and I was just like gonna get it because I was kind of in like the treat yourself mode, and then I was like, no, actually I want to put this as a reward for myself, because I was starting and kicking off the new year this year to 2025 with wanting to really have a whole health overhaul. and like juicing every morning, drinking celery juice, which I will go into later in another podcast about this because I started doing it and it's really been really great for me, by the way. So I'll go into that a little bit more later, but I just wanted to lose a few pounds and tone up a bit and just kind of get my body into a place that was a little bit stronger because I had, just through the chaos of just so many things happening, my father had gotten bit by a snake a few months ago, which caused me to have to go to the hospital more, and it kind of threw off some of that stuff, and it was just more survival mode for a little bit. Then the holidays came. I mean, it was like one thing after another. I had to go to Florida for my daughter's cheer competition right around the holidays, which meant I had to take off a lot of work, which I had to come back and make up for. I mean, it was just, a whole snowball effect that I was just like, okay, we're going to get back on track. And sometimes it can just be really hard to reestablish that habit, especially when you're doing so much discipline that you're just like, I don't want to do another thing that has to make me feel disciplined. And I'm already really tired. And I'm like, yeah, you're tired because you're not eating good and you're not treating your body well. So I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell myself that if I get to my goal weight, or when I get to my goal weight, because if I'm going to make a decision, it's not if, it's when, then I'm going to reward myself and I'm going to buy that outfit. And so I was like, okay. And yeah, there is a good chance that this outfit's not going to be there. But, I was like, all the more incentive for me to, really take charge. Worst case scenario, I'm sure I could find another one that I like just as much. Or you can buy the outfit, but you're not allowed to wear it until you reach that goal. So, set up some little rewards for yourself. I mean, honestly, back in the day, it used to be stickers, right? Whenever you were kids, you would do anything to get that gold star. Well, you know what? Sometimes we still need that for ourselves, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom. I think you really need to do things for yourself to reward yourself. But do it intentionally. Don't just do it in when you're shopping around and be like, I'm getting this because I deserve it. No, say I want to get this, but I'm not going to use it until I reach a certain goal of mine, so that you can already kind of have something that you're striving towards. I think just having that excitement of okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to build a goal to get to this? And that journey and that path, not only once you reach that goal do you get the reward of the goal, but you get also the carrot that was dangling in front of you the whole time. So that's something that I've used. Maybe it's not a good thing to do, but it seems to work for me. And I've accomplished a lot of things doing this kind of thing. 1, 2, 3.